Hello lovelies, welcome back to my channel. So we'll be making this long awaited ball gown today. If it's something you are interested in, please watch and watch to the end. Welcome. If this is your first time of stopping by, you are highly welcome. Please consider subscribing to my channel. To my old subscribers, I say thank you very much. So for this style, we'll be making use of our lace, zip, two nets, our bridal satin and lining. Then this is the hard net we'll be using for this tutorial. So for this tutorial, the first thing I'm going to do is to cut out my bodice in my brown paper because of the style. And for this bodice, I'm going to mark my half length, which is 11 inches divided by 11 inches plus 1 inch allowance for the joining. Every other measurement will be in the description box. Please check it out. So what I'm marking now is the zipper allowance. Before I start taking my measurements. For my measurements, I'm going to start by marking my neckline, which is 2 inches, 2.5 inches by 2.5 inches. That's what I marked for my neckline. Then I made a curve to give it a round neck. Then from there, I'm going to take my shoulder measurement, which is 12 inches divided by 2, and that same shoulder measurement divided by 2 is what I'm going to mark for my armhole depth, and I'm going to go ahead and connect the line. The next thing I'm going to do is to take my shoulder slope, which is 1 inch down, and I'm going to connect it to my neckline. Then I'll go ahead to start taking my circumference measurement, my bust measurement plus 1.5 inches allowance or 2 inches allowance, whichever works for you. Then I'm going to extend the line of the armhole line. Then I'm going to also take my waist measurement as well. Then I curved my armhole depth. Then I took my waist measurement. At first I made the mistake of taking it from my zipper side, then before I realized myself. So remember, the measurements you are taking is from the first line and not from the end one, which is the zipper line. That's where you're going to take your measurement from, and I connected the line. So the next thing I did is to mark my front armhole to eliminate any bulge there. I'm going to find the center of my armhole, then mark half inch inward, slant it to meet the half inch, and then curve it to meet the armhole line. And that's it for the cut, for the marking. I'm going to then for my back neckline, I marked 1.5 inches down. So I'm going to cut everything like this, then cut out my back bodice first before I will go ahead to separate it for the front bodies. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please, what are you waiting for? Hit on the subscribe button now. Join the growing family. Don't forget to check out all my beautiful styles already in the channel. To my old subscribers, I say thank you very much for all your support. I really appreciate them. I really appreciate them. Thank you very much for all your support, for all the shares, the likes, all of them. I appreciate them. So cutting out my back bodies, I'm going to flip the paper flip so that I will have the center of the zip at the center of my fabric, and then it looks as if I'm starting from the center of the lace. That's because the design there, I don't want it to enter into the cotton. That's what I just showed you, and I'm going to go ahead and cut out exactly as I have it in the paper. Then I will separate the back for my zipper allowance to be open. I'm going to use the same thing to cut out the bridal satin, which is what I'm doing now, my satin, and then cut out my lining. So I'm going to go onto the front part, and I'm going to go ahead down by 4 inches for the yoke. That's what I just marked. I'm going to connect the line, then cut the zipper allowance off, cut the front neckline, and then separate the yoke. Also cut the armhole depth that I made earlier, then separate the yoke from the down part of the body, and then we are going to transfer it to our fabric. So while cutting this on our fabric, we are going to add half inch on the yoke side of the bodies, because we're going to join this to the yoke. So I'm going to add half inch there. That's the only place I'm going to add allowance. Every other thing is the same as the pepper, because we've already added our allowance while cutting on the pepper. Then I went ahead to cut the same measurement, the same thing on my fabric, on my bridal satin, and also on my lining. Then cutting the yoke, the yoke is, I'm going to cut it into two, and also add half inch at the down part of it, because I'm going to also stitch this down with that half inch, and it's going to be two because I'm going to use one to turn the other one inside out. So this is it after cutting. I have two already, just like I'm showing you guys. So I'm going to place one on top of the other one, and then cut it out and then stitch it to turn the other one. Then for the down side of it, what I did is to first of all align the two nets to have a shorter length of to make it narrow per se. Then I'm going to mark the remaining measurements there. I'm not going to, what I added is just half inch allowance for joining of the two nets to the upper bodies. So I'm going to go ahead and start marking and then cutting this till all my my two nets finishes. So this is it after cutting it out. I have about 5 layers of net, so the ballgown is going to have about 5 layers of net. So for my bridal setting, I'm going to do the same thing. I cut out the rough edges and then measure this to get my measurement. At first I added 2 inches allowance to fold it, but in the second thought, I'm not going to fold it again. I'm going to stitch this after stitching every other thing down. So that's, I'm going to also reduce it to from reduce the 2 inches I added earlier. Likewise my lining as well, I'm going to cut out my lining the same way I cut out my bridal satin. And this is my lining after cutting it. I decided not to show you it, but just the same way I cut out my bridal, that's how I cut out this. It's going to make the video so long. So for my hard net, I decided to cut this as a ball, as a flay. You know, when you have that basket inside your wedding gown, that kind of stuff. That's what I'm trying to achieve. Though I don't have there's no boning on this one, but just to make it fuller, I'm going to cut it in a flay form. And for the waist measurement is not going to be the exact waist measurement. I want to plate a little bit of it to give it more volume, because the hard net these days are not as hard as we used to have it, so it's so light. So I marked my waist measurements plus from some inches for plating it. Then I marked the desired length I wanted. Remember that this net is not going to be up to the length of your ball gown. You can deduct about 5 inches from the length of it and then mark other ones. I don't know if you guys are seeing what I'm doing. The white table and the white ball gown is making the thing difficult, but I just hope you guys understand what I'm trying to do. I'm just cutting a flay. That's the only thing I'm doing here, just cutting a flay. And then the next thing I'm going to do is to join that place I just showed you, because the hard net is open at that side. I'm going to join it, and then decided to put a blue fabric under it so that you guys can see what I'm showing you. So it's just a flay that I cut on my hard net, and this is it after cutting everything. So going into the joining part of it, I'm going to align this all my all my fabric on top of each other. That's my bridal satin under my net. This is the my net is the the back side is facing the front of my bridal satin. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. That's not, this is not front facing front, that's front of my, I'm placing the back of my net on top of on in front of my bridal. I don't know if you understand. Then I'm going to stitch it down just to keep it in place. I'm not turning it inside out. Then for my yoke, I'm going to stitch the neckline all the way down and then turn it inside out. And this is it after stitching it down, and also stitching the other one down to keep it in place. That's the bridle to my lace. This is the back one as well. For the yoke, I'm not going to notch this. I'm going to cut out the excess there because I don't want the fabric there to be showing. So I'm going to cut it as close as I can to the stitching part, but I'm not going to cut through the thread. I hope you are getting this. Go and cut through the thread, but cut as close as you can towards the thread to eliminate just, it's going to have the effect of notching it as well. So after cutting it out, I'm going to turn this inside out and then iron it down to keep it in place. And this is it after ironing it. You see how it's in place now. That's aside. So the next thing I'm going to do is to use my lining to turn the bridle and the lace that I joined earlier. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch the my armhole, my neckline, sorry, my arm neckline, stitch it down. Then for the front bodice, I'm going to attach the yoke, place the yoke to the front part of the lace, just like I showed you now, and then place my lining on top of it. I'm going to use my pin, arrange it as much as you can to make sure everything is in place. Then use my pin to hold it down before going to my sewing machine to stitch this down. So after stitching it down, I went ahead to remove my pin and then flip it and then turn it. I'm going to stop stitch this just to keep everything in place as well. Then for the back bodice, I'm going to notch the neckline before turning it inside down out, then iron it to keep that one in place. So this is it after stitching it, and also iron this to lay it flat. So the next thing I did is to make a little stitch at the two sides of all the bodies that I have. You can stitch it all the way round, but I just made a little bit of stitch on all the two sides, even the waistlines area, for so that it doesn't keep moving up and down and I keep arranging and arranging. That's why I decided to stitch it down to keep it in place. It will help you a lot if you do this, which also helped me a lot. I don't need to bother if I have all the fabric in place before stitching. I already know that everything is in place. So the next thing I'm going to do is to stitch the shoulders, the shoulder of the bodice. So I'm going to arrange this, then place the front of the bodice together. Use my lining, the back lining, to cover this up. I'm going to go ahead to pin it to pin it down. I don't want it to move while stitching it, so I'm going to arrange this well, making sure that I have all the fabric, the net, the bridle, the lace in place, and then pin it down. I will pin it down before stitching it down. If you haven't subscribed to this moment, what are you waiting for? Please hit on the subscribe button, join your growing family. Please do not leave today without subscribing. And this is it. After stitching, I'm going to go ahead, remove my needle, and then cut out the excess there to eliminate the bulge. I'm going to cut out the excess there before turning it inside out. And this is it. After turning it, you have a perfect shoulder there. Then I did the same thing for the other side of the shoulder as well. So the next thing I'm going to do is to arrange the bodice well. I'm trying to take out my zipper allowance. So after arranging it well, I'm going to hold the zipper allowance and pin this down before any other thing. So after pinning it down, um i'm going to I'm going to remove all the stone at where I'm going to stitch. But before I stitch where I just showed you guys, I'm going to cut the armhole, the sleeve, the first, and then join everything together. So for this sleeve, I'm going to cut the front and the back, the two sleeves together, sorry. So I have my fabric folded in four. Then I'm going to mark my length, the sleeve length, and then add 1.5 inches allowance, half inch for the joining, and then 1 inch for the folding. Then for the arm, for the cap side, I'm going to mark 3 inches down for it, and then insert my measurement to my sleeve before cutting it out. I know you guys are not seeing what I'm marking because of the fabric, but when you look at it, you understand what I'm doing. And this is it. After cutting, the next thing I'm going to do is to fold the down part of it and then stitch it down. So the next thing I'm going to do is to get the center of my sleeve and notch it and then place it at the center of my shoulder before pinning down, before stitching all the way round the sleeves. I'm just making sure that I'm placing the front neck, the front side of the sleeve to the front body before pinning it down. And this is it. After stitching it down, the next thing I'm going to do is to stop top stitch at the armhole area to push that rough edges inside. I don't want it to be showing at the armhole area. Then for the yoke side, I'm going to cut it out as much as I can, and I'm not going to cut through the thread, so I'm going to cut it out, then stitch the other one in. And this is it after stop stitching. The next thing I'm going to do is to place the armhole to the sleeve together, and then stitch with my measurements all the way from the sleeve to the bodice, or to where it ends, that's the waist. And when stitching, make sure that you don't have any stone under where on your seam line. Then cut out the excess if there's any need, but I like to leave it till I'm done with the stitching and then fitting before I cut out any excess remaining. So the next thing I'm going to do is to gather the nest. Then I'm going to gather this in twos, so that's 2 by 2. So I'm going to join these two together, stitch it all with a loose stitch all the way from here to where it ends. And then for the gathering part of it, since I do not have a gathering foot, I'm going to do this manually. So I'm going to hold on to one of the trays, open up the trays, hold on to one and start pulling on one, just that same one that you are pulling, that's one that you're going to pull on to get that gathering effect. Then when I'm satisfied with the other side, I'm going to also do it to the other side, and then pull on the thread as well to gather the net. And after gathering all the nets, I'm going to go ahead and also gather my bridal satin and gather my lining. And this is my bridal. After gathering it, I'm going to go to do the same thing on my lining as well. So when I was done with all the gather gathering the whole fabric, I'm going to place all the fabric, the bridal, the line, the net, all the nets together, and then stitch it down. At this stage, the work is going to be a little bit bulky for you, but one step at a time you are going to get it. I think this is the longest work I've done recently, and I think it's worth my time. So after putting all the net together, I'm going to use my pin to secure the end part of it. You can as well do this to do it to all round. It will help you, but or you can just do this end, making sure that you have all the fabric in place, pin it down, and then before going to your sewing machine. So this is it after stitching it down. The next thing I'm going to do is to attach my hard net to it. And remember that our hard net have some inches of allowance, so we're going to plait it a little bit while stitching it down. And this is it after stitching it down. So the next thing I'm going to do is to attach it to my bodice. I'm just making sure that I don't have any stone on my seam line, before attaching it to the bodice. I'm going to place the front bodice facing the front net, then pin it down before stitching it down. So this is it after stitching the bodice to it. The next thing I'm going to do is to attach my lining. So for this lining, you can do it the way I did it, or you can just attach it the way you attach other every other step. That's the bridle, the hardness and co, and then serge it afterwards. Whichever you choose to do, it works for the two methods. But for this style, for this one, I'm going to do go with this one. I can as well set it afterwards, but for a more professional way, I the other side is better, is preferable. So this is it after stitching it down. I'm going to flip it over to the other side for you guys to see. Okay, this is how it looks. It has covered the rough edges. So the next thing I'm going to do is to prepare the bodice for my zipper allowance. So I'm going to flip it over to the right side, and then that's right facing right, joining the two zipper allowance together. And then for before I attach my zip, to close up the part that will be remaining, I'm going to be holding every single step. That's all the lining, the bridal satin and the hard net. I'm going to hold each of them. For instance, the bridal satin, I'll hold the two sides of the bridal satin. I'll mark from the waistline 8 inches down. Then from that 8 inches, I'm going to stitch bridal to bridal down, hard net to hard net down. Then all the layers of the net, I'm going to be stitching it one after the other till I get to the end of it. I hope you guys, you understand what I'm trying to say. So as I got the 8 inches, I'll pick the first layer of the net and then stitch all the way down. When I'm done, I'll remove that one from the way and then pick up the second layer of the net, mark my 8 inches and then stitch it all the way down. I'm going to do it from one layer to the other to it till I get to my lining. So this is it after I was done stitching layer by layer. The next thing, I have about 5 layers here plus my, that's 5 layers of the net. Then I have my bridal satin, my hard net and my lining. So the next thing I'm going to do is to arrange the layers at the 8 inches. That's where the stitches started. I'm going to arrange it. I'm going to arrange them together. Place it, use my needle to hold it in place and then attach my zip. I think that's all for the style, right? I think that's all. If there's any other thing, you will still see it in the video. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned one or two things from from the video. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed to my channel. Share my videos to family and friends. Give me a thumbs up. Give me a thumbs up, please. It will help me to really help my channel. And I'll see you in my next video. I'll see you in my next video, right? Bye bye.